Hi everyone, it's Kerry here. I thought I'd come on today and show you how I have created these little scrappy notebooks. They're really quick and easy to make. They use up tons of scraps if you've got lots of scraps lying around, and you can theme them to any theme you are creating. So if you're doing a vintage junk journal or an Alice in Wonderland junk journal, they can be themed accordingly. So each one of these contains roughly 10 pages, and it's just all sorts of different paper. So I've got note paper, I've got book pages, there's some blank paper, there's some vellum, some brown paper, and so any scraps will work. You can use old scrapbooking paper. The only thing is you don't want the amount of pages to be too many or the papers themselves to be too thick, or you won't be able to stitch or staple them very easily. So I've limited mine to be about 10 pages per booklet. And I've gathered here some scraps. I'll just pop these out of the way. So here I've just got my scrap papers that I'm using to make my little booklets. I have cut all of my scraps to be approximately the same size. So I didn't want them to be all the same size exactly because I wanted that little bit of variance so you can see little bits of each page. But if you did want to have your little booklets all perfect and even, you just need to make sure that obviously all the pages are the same size. Now because mine are not even and some are longer than others, I need to knock my pages up evenly to what is going to be the top of my notebook. So I'm just making sure that every page is touching the table at the top of what will be my notebook. If I don't have the pages all up to the top of my notebook, when I apply my staple or stitching, the pages might not catch on the staple or stitching, so they would fall out. If you're using all the exact same size pages, it doesn't matter which side you use to knock up the pages. So now that I've got my pages all roughly knocked up to the top, I have selected here a vintage image. Now this vintage image has actually come from some old vintage wrapping paper. It's actually a really huge sheet, but I've just selected one of the images. Now when I've cut it out from the paper, I haven't cut it exactly to the size of each image, and you can see here they're all different sizes. But because each one of my little notebooks has a header on the top, I don't want to have my image cut too short and then not have room for my header. So I've left the top of my image with an actual little extra bit of border there. So knocking up the pages so they're nice and even, and then just popping my image, again lining it up to the top, about there. And then I'm just using a stapler. Now you can stitch it if you don't want to staple it. I'll show you how to do that as well. So I've just applied the staple. Now the staple is poking out a little bit on the top, so I'm just going to take a pair of pliers and squash that as flat as I can. So that's nice and flat now, and all those pages are connected and nothing's going to fall out of there. So once I've squashed my staple flat, I'm ready to add my header to my little booklet. Now I wanted it to have a bit more of a finished look, so I started looking around for different things that I could use, and I noticed that in one of the books that I was using, this one here, the book collector, on each page it obviously had written the book collector, but then on some of the other pages it had things like this one says news and comment. Don't know if that's going to show up there. And then I also found some of them had slightly bigger words. And then I also found that I liked the look of the page numbers from the bottom of the page as well. So So all I did was cut some strips from the bottom and tops of the book for my little headers for my notebooks. So you'll need to fold it in half, and I found the easiest way to fold it was to actually place it face down, the side that you want to use place face down, and then lift the flap closest to you until you can read the words. They're going to be upside down, but until you can see the words, and then just fold and make a crease so that when you pop that over the top of your notebook, that will be readable. Okay, so to attach my heading, I'm just going to use a little bit of glue on the top of my notebook, and I'm just going to run it from side to side just below the staple. And then I take my notebook, make sure it's around the right way, and I just slip the header over the top, and I just roughly eyeball where I want the words to be. Make sure that's firm up against the crease, and then I'm just going to press that down. And once that's down nice and firm, I can just take some scissors and trim the edge off on both sides. And then I just take some ink, a little bit of colour around the edges there. Now to get a faux stitched look, I've just used a stamp and some black archival ink. There we go. And that's our little notebook finished and ready to be used. If you would prefer to stitch it instead of stapling, then what you will need to do is knock up your notebook as we did before, so you get all the pages even, and then instead of attaching a staple here, you need to have your little header all ready to go, and you actually place your header over the top of your notebook, and then you run the whole thing through the sewing machine along the edge of the header. So then you'll get a stitched edge like this. So if you wanted to theme your little notebooks for a journal you're working on, say for an example, I was working on an Alice journal, I could have a look through my book here, and I might decide to cut out this image and have that as the front of my notebook. I could still use some of the book page in my notebook or any other scrap paper, but then I could also look on the top of my book and find some headings, Looking Glass House for example, Alice's Evidence, and they would make really cute little notebook headers for an Alice journal. So anyway, that's my project for today. These are really quick and good fun to make, and it's something that you can make hundreds of, literally, and have them sitting there ready to go in journals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.